So if you're new here, my name is Justin, and I deliver videos all on my experience with WGU, but I'm starting to transition a little bit more into kind of what it's like to be a student or a graduate student, or even transitioning from student life into the world of work. So one thing that has come up for me many times as I pursued my own academic journey is, how passionate do I need to be about what I'm learning, or about what I'm doing in my life in that given moment. Because I think there's a big, a ubiquitous belief out there that you have to be on fire or passionate or really enthralled in what you're doing. And in school, so whether you're in an undergrad degree trying to declare your major, or whether you're in a graduate studies program and you're trying to decide if what you're researching is relevant and interesting to you. Now, I will just say that my own experience has proven that passion isn't necessarily a requirement for studying, and studying for a long period of time. So for example, I actually studied for about 10 years within different programs. So my first degree was an associate's degree, and I studied in a creative field, and then I went into another degree in design, but it was a bachelor's degree, but I had to spend another 4 years doing that. It wasn't really transferable. And then I did a terminal master's degree, which took me about 2 full years, and since then I've done different other programs, university certificates, other certificates of completion, and then most recently the Western Governors program, which took me 6 months to complete the Master's of Science in Curriculum and Instruction. So even though it might appear that, I had this strong affinity in what I was studying, it wasn't always evident while I was studying it. So one thing that gets confusing is that, you're supposed to be totally enjoying in a flow, totally losing time and space when you're studying something that you love. But anytime you are studying, whether you're studying for some sort of objective assessment or you're doing prep for an essay or you're doing a project in your courses, it's going to take effort and it's going to exert energy and time and commitment, and that's not always supposed to be fun. And I think that's something I learned along the way in my own academic journey, is that learning isn't always fun, nor is it supposed to be fun at all times. There's a stretch factor involved when you're learning, where you're exercising parts of your brain that in some regards may not have been lit up because maybe it's new information that you're unfamiliar with, or maybe it's information that you find challenging, or it's information you don't find overly interesting. So that's a word that I like to focus on, is overall, do you find what you're studying to be interesting, and does it offer you interesting opportunities? Now, when it came to actually studying, I had to be interested enough to get through the coursework. Now, again, was I totally on fire, passionate about it? I would say not necessarily. I think passion is something that becomes complicated because we have to define what that is. Are we talking about this fervorous feeling that we're feeling consistently over time, and that, gets us so immersed into what we're doing that we just fall in love with it? Because if that's the case, that's a very hard feeling to sustain. You may feel glimpses of that when you're, feeling like you're accomplishing something, or you're creative, or you're really excelling at something. But in learning, that's not going to always be the case, because like I said, learning isn't always going to be fun and pleasurable. And also I want to add that passion is something that is not only subjective, that it's something that is relatively new to the culture. There's a tool called Ngram that Google created that scanned all these different literature, or these books in this literature, and what it documented was that, around the 1980s or around that decade, the idea of following your passion was this new phenomena, probably this messaging to the culture. And then if you look at the graph, it kind of skyrockets since then, and it just became infused in the culture. So it's not necessarily a requirement and an obligation to do things. It's more of actually a cultural idea that's out there, that's been put into our heads, that we need to follow this idea of passion. But overall, I found what I was studying was interesting enough that I could continue on the learning path. And I did so much that I actually created goals around my learning. So for example, I had a goal that I wanted to teach in the creative fields, and that propelled me into graduate studies. I think if I didn't have a specific goal, or some sort of objective in doing graduate schools, it would have been harder for me to do it. Because again, I did 2 master's degrees. So having some sort of goal or driver or motivation really helped guide me in those troubling times where I felt like, you know, the passion or that strong interest wasn't there. Those goals can be very pragmatic. So for me, being able to teach in post-secondary, it was a requirement that I had to have higher education or advanced studies beyond a bachelor's degree. Now, some people will do graduate studies just for the sake of pure learning, and maybe they are so in love with the topic because they find it very purposeful or they find it very meaningful. But a lot of the time, even if you have that strong desire, you're still going to run into challenges. So, you know, there has to be other things that keep you motivated. And for me, another thing that's very motivating is if you can accomplish some of your tasks with ease. If you are in a discipline that is extremely challenging for you. So for example, if I was to study mathematics or statistical sciences, where, you know, it is a little bit more cut and dry with what you're learning rather than creative, I find that that would be stretching me so much and be so challenging for the type of thinker I am, for the type of person and my personality that I am, that it may be hard for me to get through the program, even though it might be interesting. So I think another suggestion here is you want to work with your natural tendencies. Again, if you are a creative person, what type of creative fields or creative type of disciplines allow you to exercise that skill and value? Or if, let's say, you are somebody who is more scientific in your thinking, well, what type of science realm resonates for you? Because there's a whole host of sciences out there. So it is important to tap into some of the interests, but some of the things that you find are part of your natural skill set. So you have to think about the type of creative problems or the problems in general that you like to solve. And certain disciplines will lend to certain types of problems versus other types of problems. Or another way of reframing that is, what kind of solutions do you get excited by? In general, my suggestions is to find something that offers you some interesting opportunities, but also is just interesting to you in general, something that aligns with your natural tendencies, and something that you feel like you can do good at reasonably in comparison to other things. And also, I would say something that you feel like you can access supports when you are in a troubling time. So for example, I had a lot of friends in my life and a lot of family members that were also very creative. And so when I needed to glean inspiration, I knew I could get some, you know, inspiration from them. So hopefully that gives you an interesting perspective to think about when you are navigating your own program. I hope that you are enjoying your program to some degree, hopefully more than not. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.